Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, 5011 fam.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
She said it all three times too. We are back, y'all, with another episode of the 5011 Chronicles. How y'all is?
We is good. We gonna see Beetlejuice pop up behind your chair.
I didn't say it. You need to be behind your chair. um,
It's a wall behind me.
those are facts, because I definitely have space behind me. So, sir, please leave me alone. It's Jay and Dee Dee here doing what we do, entertaining each other's foolishness and having conversations that spark conversation. That's what we do here at the 5011 Chronicles. And y'all, we're putting the 10 hats on today. We're going to kiki with our 10 hats on. We're going to talk a couple conspiracies. We're just going to have a good old time. So we thank you so much for tuning into this episode. Let's get into it. Child, before we get into this conspiracy, um, like, Dee and I have been talking. We've just had a week, honey. A week.
Yes. We've been keep here for a long
We've been
time.
kikiing for a minute.
How
Um,
long have we been talking?
like literally
It's been
a
like
minute.
2 hours.
It's been forever and a day. And I'm not mad at it. We needed to catch up.
We did.
We needed it. We needed it. It was just good. It was good to just let your hair down and just breathe, you know? But it has been a week, and it's so interesting because on top of all the foolishness going on with that man and the things that he's done and the world and the election, it's fun to just take a breath and talk about other stuff. You know, like,
Yeah.
I'm so sick of talking about the election right now. Can we please get to November?
I'm
Not
so
in a
sick of
hurry.
those same two topics. Because that other topic I didn't check that on also.
So,
I'm tired of it.
those two
Lock
in
them up and throw
particular,
away the key so I can move on.
done. And as many of the other ones as you can get them, and let's keep our lives going.
Get them. And
If
let's
we have
keep
to
it
deal
on
with some
going. Thank
disappointment and
you.
some sadness for a second, so be it, because y'all caused a lot of harm and pain, and we're ready to move past this, because dragging it out is not good for anybody's psyche, anybody's energy. But I think
Ain't nobody got time.
nobody's got time, and I think it's important because these two things have been so big, so prevalent, that next to nothing else is being talked about. Like, apparently Japan found an alien the other day.
They found Frieza. They didn't dug up Frieza, y'all.
You did have I forgot. I did see yes. That's where I saw it was you.
Somebody get Goku and Vegeta.
Vegeta, right.
Bulma, get the beans. We gonna need them.
But that actually brings me to my first conspiracy that I wanted to ask
Yes.
you. Because I think about it quite often. There's so much intelligent life around us that's not just human. Because we're by far not the most intelligent. We just have to be on two legs and be able to verbalize and move in a different space and be.
We got thumbs.
We got thumbs. We
It's
got
the
thumbs.
It's really the thumbs.
And the standing upright helps. But there's so much intelligent life already on the planet between plant life and animal life and fungus life, and even things that we don't yet understand. Do you think, though, that we're the only intelligent beings able to communicate the way that we do on this planet at this time?
What do you mean by like communicate the way that we do?
Do you think the aliens are here?
I think they've been here.
I do too.
I think they've been here. I think that they came way, 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 way back. When you see all those hieroglyphs about these people who came to Egypt and they taught them all these things and all of this, I feel like they've already been here. And it's so funny that you say that because I was actually watching Queen Cup on YouTube like the other day. She was on live and she was talking about how like she feels like there are like these beings that like, but they have like a capped intelligence. So they're trying to keep us at a capped intelligence, but because as humans, we're able to expand our consciousness and continue to like evolve and expand and elevate in ways that like where they are capped at, they're trying to like keep us at a certain level and kind of keep us dumbed down, keep us
That'll make you think
docile,
right there
keep us
now.
so that we don't outgrow them
Mm.
because they already just know what they know. There's nothing else for them to know.
I think to some degree that's true because for me, whatever we want to call them, I don't know. People have called them different things in different conspiracy theories. Sometimes they're the lizard people. Sometimes they're this. Sometimes they're the 13 families. Sometimes they're that. Like they have all different types of names, all different types. Because this sounds like a familiar kind of thing in the sense that as long as we are, excuse me, as long as we are in the dark and not unified, we're going to be a mess. It's going to stay a mess. We're always going to be, like you said, kind of capped at a certain level.
It's literally like it's the most basic. They're using like the most basic war
Hmm.
tactics, and because it's so simple, it's working so well, and it's been working for
I
generations
completely
so
agree. I
well.
think that that's totally plausible. Now, I know that they've been a lot more vocal even lately about their outer space discoveries and the things that they're seeing. Do you think that there is an agenda behind that? Because I personally do. I think that we're finally at this point where
Oh,
there's so
absolutely.
much that they have maybe hidden from us or they haven't thought we'd be able to handle or whatever, that we're getting to a point where it's like we got to start really feeding them some information because we're about to not be able to avoid what's going to happen.
You know what? You know what I was going to say. You know what I think it is? I think there's something worse happening, and they're like,
We got to tell them
let's start to
something.
kind of spoon feed them so that when shit hits the fan, they've already been
Hmm.
desensitized to a lot of the
Hmm.
bullshit. Because let me tell you something. Something's coming out that ocean.
But okay, let me tell you this,
Something's going on.
because this is my whole reason that I think that there's evidence of this, and we're in this age now that something is about to happen. Like we are, you can feel it in the air. There's something on the curve. There's something just around the riverbed. Like there's literally something right there, you know. And I love Pocahontas. As racist as Pocahontas was, I loved me some
That is one of my
that
favorites.
soundtrack, honey.
Slow,
Come on
slow
now.
riverbed.
The opening
I'm
song
right with you.
when they're out in the fields and
Listen,
they're harvest, all of
yes.
them, it was so good. What was I even talking about? Just beyond something's coming, because I was reading this
Something.
article. I was reading this article the other day, and did you know in certain parts of the Arctic area, we're not going to say just the Arctic Circle or Antarctica, in certain parts of the Arctic, things are growing that have never grown. Like because of how climate change is affecting the planet, we've got ice melting away
That
and greenery coming in
refuse
its
to take
place.
serious. They refuse to take it
And
serious.
greenery is coming in its
But
place, which
I
is so
think a part of
interesting.
that, and I think a part of it too, one of the things I think with global warming is like there's so much that's probably in that ice that we don't know.
There's so many viruses they found.
And with everything melting, like we're being exposed to so much stuff that we don't know, things that we can't see on a micro level, and then things that we can see probably on a macro level that could probably kill us
They
all.
were
Who
probably
knows?
not going to be too excited about. Um, it's
There could be
interesting.
some dinosaurs thawing. We don't.
There's really no, and I think that's the crazy thing that is not even unrealistic to think about. Because this is my thing. For people who are out there and they're like, no, I asked someone, I was like, do you believe that aliens are a thing? And they're like, no, I don't believe in aliens. I said, okay, heard. So you mean to tell me that we're literally the only beings in the only planet in all of what we don't understand to be out there? And we're realizing how little we are in the grand scheme of that. We're the only ones like this? That's what you really believe? Like you really believe there's no
I think
possibility?
it's a very arrogant point of view to have,
But I
to think that there
also
are these just pointless floating rocks out there. All these galaxies that we can't even see. We don't even know how infinite space
really
is. We don't
is.
even know what space is,
We
which
don't.
is actually one of my conspiracies that I wanted to
Okay.
bring. This
What
is
you
one of,
got?
so what if we have this perspective of like space is like this airless vacuum space, right?
Hmm.
Where you can't breathe. What if it's
I
water?
think it's water. I've been thinking that for a few years now.
Because the way you float in space is the
Same way
same you
you
would
swim
float
in
in
water.
water. And maybe we can't breathe because we can't breathe in water
Period.
either.
It makes me think
Maybe it's not that it's like a vacuum, but it's
it's
water.
water. I think that
Because even the what goes on in space affects the ocean here on
I
Earth.
need to find my biblical.
That's a scientific
That is,
fact.
I need to find my hang on, I have it right here. I have to tell you because
And what if that barrier is not it's like not necessarily this what if it's like a barrier around Earth that's like protecting us
from the
from
water.
like the water?
Let's see. Okay, listen to
And
this.
we're like in a bubble. We're almost like in a snow globe or like a bubble.
I'm gonna read this, and this is not new. This is not King James or New King James version. This is actually New International Version of the Bible. But I
Come on,
always, and I
international.
feel like we've done this on the pod before. We're gonna do it again. Because the very beginning of the Bible, regardless of what you believe about it, because I have a whole theory in and of when we get there. But the very beginning of the Bible talks about creation from a Christian perspective. And I think at the end of the day, if you break down all the scientific, the Christian, all of the other religious perspectives of how creation happened, they have some very general things, and a lot of them could still, the Big Bang could totally have still happened in the creation theory. And I think that's what blows my mind about people not thinking critically is the Big Bang can
And
still
not
be a
seeing
part
how it's in tandem. They separate science and
so
spirituality like there's
much,
these two things.
but they
But you're
work
just
hand in
explaining
hand.
spirituality and scientific
In
facts.
like
That's
it's
all
you're
you're
using
doing.
different terms. It's
You're
like
just
a different
breaking it
language.
down.
It's literally like you just chose a different
Yeah, you're
language.
just explaining how it works.
You wrote it in a different font. Literally, you
Yes,
just changed the font. Like, stop, sir or madam. But
this is
I
cursive.
always go right. I always go back to this because I have this theory that regardless of what you believe, the way that the Christian Bible talks about creation is very similar to what we were just discussing. So listen,
Hmm.
in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. Now keep in mind, earth has not been created yet. This is space.
So what waters were he
And I've
hovering
said that, I'm
over?
telling you, I always tell people space has to be water because that is even what the Bible says. And God said, let there be light.
Boom.
And there was light, and God saw that the light was good and separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning in the first day. Now listen to this. I wanted to get down to verse 6 because
Oh
of
my
this.
God. Wait, pause before you go to that because that verse actually gives even more credence to how people like to talk about astrology is separate from God. But he was out there creating the sun
Mm-hmm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
moon
Mm-hmm.
that rotate not just with us, but there are others out there. So why was he out there putting other ones out there? What was he making more for,
Thank
y'all?
you.
What was he making more
Thank
for?
you.
Explain it
It
to
wasn't
me.
just us. Again, um, verse 6, and God,
God probably been practicing with planets forever.
and this is just our
Just like on
story.
Dragon Ball Z where
This
they
is
had
just
all these
our
different
story. That's what gets me about people is I'm like, you're so
that's why
arrogant
they
to
be having
believe.
Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth all of that. We
When
picking up.
I'm
Is you
telling
picking
you,
up what
I'm
I'm putting
telling you,
down?
listen to verse 6. And this is again, all God has created at this point is light and darkness. Nothing else.
Yes.
Nothing else has been created. So listen to verse 6. Light and dark. Verse 6, and God said, let there be an expanse between the waters to separate water from water. So God made the expanse and separated the water under the expanse from the water above it. And it was so
You better
God called
preach.
the expanse separated water from water. He called the expanse sky. Come on now.
Come
And there was
on.
evening and there was morning, and that was the second day. And God said, verse
You better
9,
put it together.
let the water under the sky be gathered to one place and let dry ground appear. We now have ground. We now have earth.
Boom.
And he called the dry ground land and gathered the waters. These are now the waters under the expanse. He called them seas. So what happened to the waters above the expanse? That is space. Every biblical
And that is
translation
why
says that.
I believe that aliens are in the ocean.
Boom,
Boom.
there it is. And at the same time,
Drop.
I'm not going to say I'm a flat earther. I'm not going to say that because I haven't been in space. So I can't tell you what Earth actually looks
Yeah.
like. I've learned most about Earth from a um, global perspective. So that's what my mind is attuned to. I've also seen and read things in the Bible and other places that allude to there being another idea of what that global thing looks like. It's still a globe. It's just not fully round. They're showing a globe that is flattened. I've heard that as a perspective.
Like a semicircle.
Like you said, we're
I
being
could I could
separated from the waters above us by something which is called the firmament or the expanse that became sky. So it's just interesting to me that people aren't willing to open their minds a little bit, and just read. Even Christians, for me, when they dog and down people who are like, well, I believe creation. Do you? Do you believe
You know
creation?
what's so wild though? Like we are literally probably like this random floating rock in the ocean. Like we just some random pebble. Just breezing on by in
Breezing
the
on
ocean. Just
by.
spinning on through.
And that's what's so interesting to
Like
me about it.
when you be in the ocean and you go to the beach and you step on a rock and you be like, oh my god, you probably just stepped on Earth.
But it makes me think, I don't know if you ever saw, there was this video circulating a while back where these divers were swimming and they go into this cavern underwater. They're swimming underwater and they go in this
Hmm.
cavern. And in the cavern, they get to a place where they're almost like they have a little bit more gravity. It's still clearly that
And
they're
they
in
just
water,
walking.
but they're kind of walking. And there's a drop off that has water running underwater, but it looks like a whole different water. It didn't look like the same. It barely looked like you were underwater, but they were underwater, and it was water running in this cavern underwater. Different water. It just
Under
makes
the
it just
sea.
like there's so
That's
much we don't
wild.
know about the ocean.
There's we don't know anything.
For real.
Let's be
At the
clear.
end of the day, when you round it up or down, we know
We can
0%.
only go a few thousand feet. We don't. That's still shallow compared to the ocean.
Compared to
We're
the
still on the
actual
surface
depth of the
of the
we
ocean.
don't know where the ocean is.
We know nothing.
And you know what's
We
crazy?
don't know
You know what's
nothing.
crazy? Recently, and y'all look into this, recently they've been talking about how scientists are saying we actually don't know as much as we thought we knew about the core of Earth. We thought we knew
What
more about it,
that
and now we realize we don't. Like,
we don't
the
know
core of Earth
nothing.
is not what we think it is. What does that mean? So I just
It means
think
that they never knew what they was talking
there it
about. They
was.
just
They just
and
started
that's
making
the
stuff,
thing.
running with the best
But that's the
theory.
thing. They've been making stuff up. I don't know if you saw on Netflix. I can never remember this man's name. I feel so bad, but he's been doing this since like the '90s, where he tours all these different places, and he has his own theory that there was like you know how they say there was like these barbarians, there was like this barbaric era. He says that there was actually civilized like civilizations, and they had this whole Netflix series where he's going to all these places and looking at all these like underground civilizations that were built in like mountains and stuff like that, or all these random underground
Mm,
civilizations where like these people were like evolved in a way where like they had their own type of like technology. They weren't just these barbarians that didn't know
right.
anything or didn't know how to do anything. Like there was this whole other world, and then there was this massive flood, and then there's what we know as like our idea of what history is.
And even that
Because in
aligns with
all
the
of
good
he
book.
traveled all over the world, and like in every culture they have this, they talk about this massive flood, and they have in every culture they had these underground civilizations, or like where they were civilizations that was built in these mountains. And when I say the way they were built was so advanced that we don't even have that type of stuff. Like the way cathedrals and stuff, we don't have none of that type of
Not
stuff
anymore.
now. Like
That's
we
not
are
a thing.
not advanced like that now at
But it's
all.
even the idea of how we talk about, not only are they trying to kind of cap us and keep us dumbed down, but even if you look at it, they're trying to kind of silence and squelch creativity. If you think about those, the
Yeah.
time of the, Sistine Chapel and how they were creating things, everything was so ornate and detailed. And it was like, how did you manage to do that without laser engraving and this, that, and the other? And now, what is glorified and praised is modern, simple blocks, very minimalist. That is considered sophisticated. That is considered next level. You've done the
But
thing.
it's
If
like
it's
where's
personality is being
it's like we're
washed
going
away,
backwards
we but it's like, why are y'all so intent on us not being individual in that sense? Why are you so intent on everything being bland and not
because
being
it's
the status
easier to
quo?
control
There it
people when
is. It's
everybody is
all about
uniform.
control. It's literally all about control. It's literally all about control at the end of the day. They control the information.
I have another theory
Okay, what you got?
about all of that too. So, in tandem with all of that, there's this conspiracy theory about the Mandela effect.
Ooh,
So, first, I don't know if you remember when Fruit of the Loom was trying to say that they never
the
had that,
cornucopia
yeah,
lies.
and that was proven to be a lie. Because like people pulled up their own fruit, like because I
I
remember
remember the
having
cornucopia.
fruit of the Loom
Hmm.
cornucopia. Like everybody remembers this, but
Period.
they swore, like they was swearing down
Never
that
happened.
like this never happened, which is wild. Because like, why would they do that?
Time jumping.
Like, what was the point of them lying? But there's this theory that the Mandela effect is like their way of seeing how much, like they're practicing how much they can change history without us noticing. It's almost like they're testing to see like how
Bernstein and
much. It's like
Bernstein.
yeah, it's like they're testing their brainwashing of like how much can we change history without anybody noticing,
Hmm.
and who will they just go with it? Can we do it? Like
Right.
they've
Will
been
they just go
practicing on
with
this
it?
for generations.
Sick.
But I feel like that's why I feel like also that's why our generation is being attacked so much,
Hmm.
because our generation is the generation of people that are waking up. We are literally going.
We're
They're
just playing
mad that
that
we're
ish
going against the
anymore.
grain, and it's like even how they're trying to say like, oh, Gen Z is lazy. But if you think about it, Gen Z isn't really lazy. They're just not 9 to 5 corporate generation. They're not doing the rat
And they're
race.
not
They're
taking
not
it. They're
getting on
not
the
having
hamster wheel. They are literally creating their own way.
it. Hmm.
And like we're getting money out here
Hmm.
doing what we want to do.
Hmm.
We're not, if we don't like the job, we quit and then we leave it. We're
Period.
not putting up with this. If you're not going to approve my time off, I'm not
I'm
working here.
coming.
Like
Period.
they are like,
It's
they
done.
are bucking everything that was the norm. And I feel like we were like the generation where the norm didn't work. It literally didn't work because the like everything changed. Society had changed so much that what they had put that blueprint, it
It
didn't
doesn't
even
work
work for them.
anymore. Hmm.
You couldn't just go to college and get a good job and do it. It doesn't work.
Period.
So we had to go against the grain, and it gave Gen Z the opportunity to just not even be on the grain at all.
Hmm.
Ain't no wheel. Like we doing what we want to do, which I respect. I like that. And that's one thing I do like about their generation is like they're creating their own way.
They
They're
are.
creating their own thing. They're not letting anybody tell them who they
But
are.
I
Like
have
they
to
doing what they want
interject.
to do.
It's not them doing it on their own either. I have to interject because
Well,
the
no,
reality of it is that
we set the
we set
tone.
the tone. We laid the
We definitely
groundwork.
set
We
the
were the first
tone.
ones to really create social influencer. Like
Mhm.
that wasn't really a thing.
Mhm.
That was a thing pioneered for real by our generation. Like we're the ones who made
But they got to
they
grow up the
got to
way
grow
we
up
wanted
exactly, and they got to grow up with us as examples of what success could look
to.
like.
Mhm.
Those of us who were able to be on the
Mhm.
front end of it, the Jackie Inas and the
Mhm.
Shane Dawson and the
Yeah.
others, there are so many others who were on. I was like, I don't want to listen anymore. Why he takes? I'm so not sorry about that. But there's so many others though who were on the front end of that, who were able to pioneer, and not
Hmm.
just in
Even with
entertainment. I'm like
podcasting.
podcasting, but even like the small business boom, like entrepreneurship
Hmm.
and black business ownership and black woman business ownership
Hmm.
and black LGBTQ
Hmm.
business, like that has moved in a whole different direction during Gen Z's infancy, leading to who they are now. So they've been able to grow up with
Here's the danger
completely
side,
different
though.
examples.
Here's the danger side to all of it. The one thing is like there's been more of an emphasis in like entrepreneurship and people really like taking their own route and making their own way. But then there are also things like doctors, engineers, lawyers, plumbers, trades. Like trades are still
Yeah, trade
necessities
still
in
necessary. Yeah,
society.
absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like I feel like, or it's like you don't have like who's innovative in engineering, who's going to be the next innovators to create this next new wave of technology, or like who's going to, I feel like there's
Hmm.
no push academically, and even with the government making it to where there's an intentional not a push for academics, and they're actually taking more things away than adding. They're taking libraries out of school, like that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? Trying to literally like dumb
Down
down
so
the
they know
generations
nothing,
under us.
so they don't know
And they're
history.
literally trying to literally change history for the generations under us. Like right in front of our faces. They're just like, no, we're gonna say that this is what it was.
It's
Like,
crazy.
which is
It is
wild.
the biggest gaslighting operation ever, literally happening right now. Okay, I need like 2 seconds because I need to
Literally.
grab my phone charger. Um, because although she was juiced up, we did, like you said, talk for a minute, a couple hours before we start recording. And I'm gonna put my charger over here, and I'm gonna be on dead if I do. If I don't, we'll edit all of that out. Let's put this charger up here. Oh, girl, you're gonna have to stretch. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna need you to reach the. Oh. Okay, is that gonna be far enough? Yes. You can stay right there, and I'll snatch my phone off this table. We're gonna be blessed in the city of Winfield. Okay. Okay. Yes. I don't even remember what I was about to say, but child, I was about to go somewhere with it. Um,
Take it
and
somewhere
you
else.
know, we're gonna go somewhere else with it. It even makes me think because I have a theory. Since we're on this idea of you talking about Mandela effects and how they're using that, I have a theory about dreams. Well, first, before I get into my theory about dreams, my biggest conspiracy theory that I always hold on to and I literally hold to be true is that there has to be some kind of agreement or agreement where they have to tell us some of what's going on. Like we have to know, but
Yes.
they do it in a way that is not outright, which would benefit the most people, it being outright and them just saying it. They do it, in my
Or they say
opinion,
it like it is outlandish.
they I think that the majority of the ways that we're going to find what's actually going on is going to be in film, is going to be in TV shows, is going to be in music,
Hmm.
because there are things that can't be said on the news or just they're going to find subtle way, and it's going to be usually independent or people who are a little bit more. I'm not going to say untouchable, who have reached a certain level where they don't care how the industry receives what they do. There it went.
Listen, we know The Simpsons is doing
The
it.
Simpsons.
We
But I mean,
that we know.
we've seen it a couple different places because I have this firm belief that the Marvel Cinematic Universe is sprinkling all types of tea in
I
there.
think, oh yeah, and Disney as a whole.
But I also think that
Disney as
I
a
think it's a
whole.
responsibility component. I don't think that they want to tell us.
Hmm.
For some reason, it doesn't feel like they actually want to tell us. It feels like they're telling us because they
Yeah.
have to. And even the way that it's put into things. Sorry, y'all, I'm struggling just a little bit over here. I'm getting my life together. But even how it's put into certain forms of media and where we find it, it's because I think it goes to
Hmm.
my theory on dreams. The movie Multiverse of Madness, Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Wonderful first take at MCU horror film. I enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I thought there was definitely some loot holes in the story that they hopefully will take care of at some point. But what I loved about it was there was a theory that I had never considered to be true, never even crossed my mind until I watched that film. And in that film, they bring about this idea that when we are asleep, or when the characters are asleep in the MCU, in Earth 616, when they are asleep, the lives that they lead and what they experience in their dreams are not actually them not actually them dreaming. It's them moving into an alternate version of themselves in a different dimension, a different timeline, a parallel universe. But it's almost like they jump into a different version of themselves where they're experiencing life differently.
Mhm. So let me ask you this
Hmm.
then. Because have you ever had like dreams that like years later, like it actually happened?
Yes.
Like you be sitting there like, oh shit, like I had a dream. Like,
Hmm.
all of this that's happening right
Right
now.
now.
So happening. And so would it be like sometimes your timeline kind of like
Cross it. Hmm.
parallels?
Because my theory about deja vu, and because I have visions,
That happens to
I
me
have
too.
vision dreams and those intuitive things as well, and I've seen things. I have to give some of my background on this because this is, I guess I kind of just skipped to like, this is what I believe. And I didn't talk about why so much like life has kind of brought me to that perspective. So of course it's being a Marvel fan and diving into science fiction and things that are fantasy and not the average person's normal mindset and wavelength and what they're thinking about. That I think helps us kind of be able to stretch our minds a little bit differently. Anime, we stretch our minds a little bit
Hmm.
differently because we see some really crazy, outlandish things sometimes in these shows,
Yeah.
and some of it can be entertaining. Other times it'll really make you think, and it can be thought provoking in a sense that you didn't even expect from this show or this moment, whatever. But as someone who you could call clairvoyant, or you might call it a prophetic, or you might call whatever your background is and whatever you might call it, you know what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
I have dreams, I have visions, I have moments where God, the divine, will show me something, and in that moment I might not understand it. In that moment sometimes I might understand it. So it just depends on a case by case
Hmm.
situation. But for example, I once had a dream, and in this dream, and I'm not going to say this young man's name, there's this guy in this dream, and in this dream I'm on a bus, school bus, feels like a school bus.
Hmm.
It's just me and this guy.
Come on, the
We went
magic
to
school bus.
it was a magic bus, all right. But the guy was 4 years older than me. So he went to high school right when I started. And he graduated maybe the year that I started or something like that, my freshman year. We'd never had a conversation that I knew of. I knew who he was because it's just like small town type thing where you know people's names. Small school. It wasn't that small, but it was small enough that you know people's names, you know people's families, and you run into people enough, you know who they are. And in this dream, I found it so weird because I'd been out of high school maybe 5 years. In this dream, I'm standing on a bus, and he's seated in the very back seat on the right by himself. It's just the two of us on the bus. No bus driver, no nothing. I look at him. He nods his head in kind of like a greeting, kind of like I see you kind of way. I nod my head back. I wake up. I find out the very next day that an accident had happened and he was no longer with us. We had not known each other. We had not talked. We had not. But in that dream, I was shown him maybe in transition, maybe I don't know.
That's
Another
crazy.
example, the church my home church was founded by a very particular minister. Those who are from Silicaga know who I'm talking about. And we were very close. This is a very different type of story. She and I were very close, really cool. She would babysit me. She had a nickname for me, all of this, all of the above. But she was the pastor and the founder of our church, very well known in the area for the anointing on her. When she passed in 2002, 2003, I remember very vividly when she passed. I remember the minute that we found out she had passed, and I'll tell you why. My mom and I were outside washing her car. At this time, I had to have been, 8 or 9, 9 or 10, something like that. We're outside washing her car. I will never forget this. We're washing the car. I have the water hose. with the little squeezing. I'm squeezing. I remember I was playing with water hose, and my mom gets called inside. When she gets called inside, I'm outside rinsing off the car, but playing with the water hose. And I squeeze, and you've been to our house, so you know next to like the side entrance, there's like this plot of like grass and plants and stuff, and it's just there. And then there's a little driveway next to that, and there's a driveway on the other side, but whatever. We're talking about this part. It's right there. Closest, not closest to my room, but closest to my parents' room. You know what I'm talking about. So it's plot of grass. I'm spraying the water hose over it. And I remember 9 or 10 spraying the water hose. And in the last spray of the water hose, I see my pastor. She's standing there. She waves at me. She smiles and she says, "I love you." And she calls me by my nickname. And I just found it so peculiar because I'm just holding on to the water while I'm seeing this lady stand here. And I'm just looking at her and she says like, "I love you." And I'll see you. And she's gone. She disappears. My mom comes right back outside as soon as she disappears to tell me that the pastor had passed.
That's so crazy.
Wild. But I've also had so many dreams and visions and things that I'll see in a blur, in a hurry. I hear things, I'll smell things that connect me to moments, and God has something to tell me and has something he wants me to see, and has something he wants me to say even. And so for me, I know that on a spiritual level, there's so much more than we give the divine credit for, because I'm always having these little moments of stuff like this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, dreams, I've always been a super vivid dreamer. Like super vivid,
Me too.
deep dreams. And then up until maybe I was about 25, 26, I started lucid dreaming. And I can actively lucid dream now. And being in dreams and being able to control and still allow your body to rest, I've had some visions and been in some warfare in these dreams. And the reason I believe the idea that dreaming and going to this dream realm is some type of transportation, maybe of spirit and maybe not of body, but of spirit, where our consciousness really goes somewhere else. It might dive in, but I think it goes somewhere else. And I'll say this, because one dream I will never forget, which I have several that I'll never forget, but one dream that I'll never forget was, and I don't know if I've told you about this, but I had a dream where I was in battle with an angel or a demon. I don't know that it was an angel. I just know that they had wings and they were in white and we were fighting. And we were fighting with swords
well, demons were angels.
They were.
Fallen
and
angels.
The thing about it is the vision or the idea, the imagery that we've been given of angels is not exactly how angels have been described in other books. So what we might see as angels might actually be something else. And what is described as angels in the books, it might actually be what real angels look like. Do your own research on that one, guys, because that is there's a lot of misinformation I think that happens, and that's a real conspiracy. There's a lot of misinformation where they tell us things and want us to believe certain things about things so that we don't dive into what the truth of that thing is. But in this dream, I wake up and I'm in this white space, and I started doing that because I started thinking about our conspiracy theory earlier about space being water. It was like I was in water. I swam like I was in water, but I was not in water. And it was like I would jump and fly and all these things like I'm in the sky, but the feeling of it, it felt like water. I didn't move like water. It didn't look like water. It felt like water, but that's neither here nor there, but that's important to understand. And for those of you who watched anime when they're fighting in the sky and they're air jumping and stuff, and it was a moment like this where I'm fighting for my life in this white vast space, and this entity is trying to take me out. Y'all, when I tell you this thing was trying to take me out, it was trying to take me. It was like we were like boom, boom. I mean, like we'll fly past each other and just hitting. And I don't know how I knew to fight with this sword, but I had a sword. It had a sword, and we were just swording it. We were swording. And I literally fought for 8 hours because I woke up having won. I woke up exhausted, sweating. My bed was coated in sweat. I sweat through my clothes. And what was crazy is I did not wake up I wake up at I'm the lightest sleeper. So I wake up at the wind blowing. But I did not wake up at all that night until the battle was won.
Mm.
And it made me wonder if I didn't win that battle, when my ass had woke up. Like I'm glad I won it. I don't want to know
Okay.
what would the alternative been like. I don't want to know. So
Okay.
that has just been my theory on that. I do think that dreaming, things can happen in our dreams and we can go places in our dreams. And even my experience when I was in the hospital and I spent a lot of time dreaming, I would always have these moments at the end of a dream where I felt like I had to get back in my body. And I found myself running.
Mm.
Whenever the dream was over, I would go through a door and it would lead back to my hospital bed. It was the weirdest thing. Lead back to my hospital bed. And sometimes I would feel like I sat down wrong in my body. This is the craziest thing. But, if you watch movies and hear about astral projecting, there are people who claim to do it in this realm, in this time, who claim to do it now. And I have this theory that that might have been what I was doing at the time without the training, without the proper understanding of
Mm.
it. But I think that sometimes when we are so tapped into just our mind and into the consciousness of our being, so many things can happen.
Crazy.
Manifestation.
Have you seen that show where they do that, where the lady can like go in the, like when she dreams and she just like goes. There's a show that describes
Mm,
what you just described when you were in the hospital.
no.
There's a show where that happens, and there's a door and everything. It's a whole thing. There's a show, but she can like, I think she can like switch bodies with people or so. It's
Ah,
wild.
that sounds
It's
familiar for
wild. I
some
ain't gonna lie.
reason.
It's really good though.
Sounds familiar for some reason.
But there's a show that's just like that. There's a show just like that. That's why I be mad sometimes when I forget my dreams, because I
I
be
try
wanting
and
to
write as
remember
many
all
of them
my
down
dreams.
as I can, but I also have this feeling that every dream that I have, for the most part, and then the idea, a lot of people in spiritual community say this, that our dreams are just our subconscious speaking to us, trying to tell us things, trying to show us things, visualize things, or even put things into a certain perspective so that we can understand them differently. We can approach it from a different place in our
Hmm.
mind when we're in conscious mind. So it's like a conversation with our subconscious mind is apparently what dreaming could be. And I think that that is also a
Hmm.
possibility because our subconscious mind would be our God mind. That would be the mind that connects
It
all of
would.
us to each other. And that, like, so for me, I don't find it
And
strange.
our spirit is the God in us.
And so I think
So
all of
that's
it
what.
connects. Like I think all of like those theories, just
Yeah.
that train, that train of theories, the very hungry caterpillar of theories that we just went through, for me connects all to each other because it is this idea that this reality, this realm, what we're living, even the simulation theory. Everybody's heard simulation theory, so I don't even think it's
Hmm.
crazy that we have to go into it. But even the idea of simulation theory, I think if you really view them from a critical thinking perspective, put on your spiritual eye. Look, read it through your third eye, not just your two natural ones. Hear it in your heart
Hmm.
and feel it in your consciousness. I think that all of us will see that there is some truth, some sliver of truth to all of those conspiracy theories because of what
And they link.
they link to each other. They confirm each other. And then the book, like that's what I always try and tell people, especially my Christians, the book confirms it.
The book that you love so
The
much,
book confirms it.
it
But it's like
confirms
even
it.
you talking about the great flood that all of these cultures experienced, that the book confirms it. And my
The
theory,
book.
I'm gonna leave it on this one. My last theory about the Bible is that although the Bible is a compilation for a fact, it is a compilation. I believe that the Bible might be one of the most interesting tellings and retellings of the history of this planet. Because the word
Yeah.
Bible literally means book, just so we're all on the same page. Look into the translation of it. Bible means book. It does not have some beautiful special meaning. It means book. So it's the holy book that you all are referring to. That's what it is. And if it is the holy book, and each culture has a holy book, if it is the holy book, to me, when you read it through a different set of eyes and not just the literal sense, you read it through a different set of eyes, you see all types of parables and second meanings and I mean, the Bible talks about all type of stuff. It don't just be yeah, like y'all, let me tell you, when I read it for myself, I realized,
And when you really, not just taking it at surface
thank you.
value. for like these words mean exactly this. Don't take it for surface. Really deep it and really get into what they're
Really get
saying.
into
Read between lines, connect dots,
it.
comprehend,
Ask
attach
questions.
it to today.
Ask questions.
Ask questions.
So many
It's not questioning
denominations. It's
God. They want you to
not.
think that, and that's
It's
not
not.
true.
Ask questions
That's
because
not true.
it's also so important. I was listening to a speaker speak, and they were talking about, there was a part in what we were discussing where the Apocrypha came up. And they were
Hmm.
like, well, for me, if it ain't the King James version, I'm not deep down in it like that. If it ain't the King James version, I don't want to hear it. And for me, that was a problem to say on the stage that they were on when you have that big of an audience and you make a statement like that, because the reality is that there are multiple translations, one for a reason. Look into the history of the translation that you're touting to be the best. Just look into the history of it. Because for me, when I began exposing myself to more translations of the Bible, you have to
Thank
look at
you.
when people got the information, what they did with the information, how much the information they had at the time, and did they have an ulterior motive when they translated it.
Boom.
So without having to throw too much
Boom.
more shade, for me, and D and I have actually been reading the Psalms in the Passion Translation, which is translated to
Which
English
is so
from the
good.
Aramaic, which is the language that was spoken back then. That is the language Jesus spoke, was Aramaic. So when it's translated directly from Aramaic by scholars into English, you have a whole different experience than you do when you
It
look
is a
at
different
the New King
experience. I ain't
James and
gonna
the
lie.
King James version. For me, it's a much better experience because you start to see the truth behind the words, and they break down, this word means this, but it also means this.
Yep.
The original word
Which
means
I
this,
like.
this, and this. So it could mean XYZ, it could mean ABC, and it could also mean QRST. And I like that this translation does that because it is not trying to, it's not coming with an agenda and telling you what the Bible says. We've translated it from the words, and some of these words have multiple meanings. So we're going to tell you which ones, and we're going to leave it up to you to interpret exactly what was said in that phrasing. Because many times those three things are going to not be too far from each other. They're not too far from each other. I'm done.
And then you also have to take into account what's left out and why. And I think that's the biggest thing that people ignore is what's left out and
And
why.
why?
Because usually that's probably where you need to be
That's
reading.
probably where you need to be.
If they found, because let's be honest, what's now known in the Bible now, when they found those with all the other Dead Sea Scrolls, they didn't give us all the other stuff that they had
Come on now.
found. They just gave
They
us
said, look what we
this
found
little
from the
bit,
Bible. Look what Bible
and they
pages we
got together and
found.
decided what you could
This is what they
read.
say. This is what we're gonna let y'all look at. But
So I
and it's not
mean,
different from anything else they've done with anything else. Space, the water. Because we're just gonna connect this back, and I promise you, I'm about done with this one right here. But I'm gonna connect this last dot back because I'm gonna show y'all this big old circle we done built for y'all. This gorgeous tapestry we have sewn together and embroidered. When NASA first began studying, NASA was not studying outer space. NASA first
talk about
began
it.
studying the ocean.
Better
And
talk
whatever
about it.
happened during their studying of
Better
the
put it on the
ocean,
pack.
they diverted their attention to outer space, to outer water. Boom. Mic drop.
And as above,
So
so below.
below, come on now.
Y'all better start reading and getting into it.
Get into
Don't
it.
just listen up. Read and get
And
into
don't
it. I'm
just
telling
believe
you.
everything that you hear, people. Oh my gosh. Please start critically thinking. We are past the point where
Critical thinking
ignorance is bliss is
skills.
going to work. Ignorance is bliss is not working anymore, y'all. Because too many of us are actually finding out and trying to put ignorance back on. Stop that. It doesn't work. After you've heard it, you
Ignorance
can't unhear
being
it.
bliss got 45 as president. That's what ignorance being bliss got you. That's what it got you.
Let me tell you. which as soon as, this month is all about the spooky things and the conspiracies. And, we're getting into we're matching the theme for the month. But just know, after our Halloween episode, like, because we're going to have some little stuff in here. Y'all vote, please. This
Yeah.
is so
It's
important.
November's coming
That's going to
up.
be we're going to forever culture you to death the next
The
couple
real
of,
spooky season is
come on
coming.
now. Y'all think Halloween is scary. Imagine 4 more years with that.
Winter is coming.
And like legit, that is our for the culture, and our forever for the culture is get registered. We're running up to those deadlines for registration. Get registered. Find out where you're supposed to be to vote. Get out and vote. Get out and vote, and
Yes.
not just because of the
Yes.
federal, because they probably already decided what's going to happen federally. Okay, I'm still going to vote federally, but it's probably already decided. But your local elections, your state elections, there's some big things on the table.
Yes.
There's some really big
Yes.
things on the table, and you need to be well versed in what's happening in your state, in your community, in your county, and in your country. But you need to know what's going on with your local government, because when you start wondering why your
Yes.
kids no longer get lunch at school, or that their every lunch is $10,
Okay.
because the fact that they are trying to eliminate free lunch in school, because the fact that they are trying to eliminate libraries in school and trying to control, and this is another thing that some of the parents out there need to know. D is there. D is at the beginning with our baby. But
Yes.
some of y'all that have older kids that you need to know is when they take those laws and use them against us, find the loopholes and use them back. Because there was a woman
Yes.
up north. I want to say Massachusetts, but I could be wrong. They had used a certain law telling, their school system that this list of books that were banned. So, in retaliation, do y'all know what she did? She proposed another list of books and gave them a whole list of books that they had considered approved, and she explained to them why they were also should be banned. And among them, number one was actually the Bible. And guess what? She got it approved. And do you know why she got it approved? Because at that point, there was nothing else they could say. You said murder. Oh, crap. I can't say that word. You talked about unaliving. You talked about taking advantage.
You do it every
Every
episode.
episode. And I was being so good, being so conscious about the word. But like all of these dark themes and these things that you talk about that they're all
Are
present
in the Bible.
They're all present in the Bible.
Yeah.
So she got it banned from that school district. And that's not what I'm saying, going around get the Bible banned from every school district. The reality is, that's not what I'm saying. I don't need anybody to skew it and be like, that's what he said, go get the Bible banned. That's not what he said. What I'm saying is, when you find that they're banning Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, when you see that our books are being banned, then you need to go back and say, well, why do my kids need to read Schindler's List? Well, then why do my kids need to read The Boy in the Striped Pajamas? If we can't have our books present, you don't need yours there either. And that's no attack on any culture. But we've got to get to a point. That's no attack on any culture. Because I think we can all learn from each other's pain. Like, I think it's so important that we all learn from each other's histories. And even from the ugly parts. Like, that's the only way we're going to get better. I'm done.
And to tie it all together, I just want to say shout out to Jimmy Carter. Because, child, they said Jimmy Carter, sometimes he be sleeping and he be days at a time. And it made me think about, what do he be dreaming about? Where he at? So shout out to Jimmy Carter. Because he is hanging on. It's like, Jimmy, just go on and be with him. Because you be asleep most of the time anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was one of the best presidents that we've had. So shout out to Jimmy Carter. He never hurt nobody.
Oof, I can't even. We're gonna have to get into presidents one day, because, child, few and far between. Few and far between. Y'all, we want to thank you so much for tuning into this episode and spending some time with us here at the 50 Chronicles. We love y'all. We thank you. We'll see you next week for another spooky episode of the 50 Chronicles. Peace.
Peace.